Hi, we're Nia and Marianne from Seren Health Coaching. We are metabolic health coaches who are passionate about good metabolic health for everyone. We also love to chat about all things health and to share as much information as we can with people who want to make changes to their lifestyle but aren't quite sure where to start. We're going to release a new episode every Friday where we talk about a different aspect of health. So do subscribe and let us know what you think. We'd also love to know what you're interested in too. So if there's something that you'd like us to have a chat about, do send us a message and we'll do our best to cover it soon.
Hi, Nia. We always like to talk about controversial things on our podcasts, don't we?
We do.
So this is no exception, I think. But what I love is I think you're in a good position to have a fairly balanced view. So
Hope so.
tell us what we're
Hope so.
talking about today.
Okay, so we are talking about supplements, and we're
Oh, supplements.
specifically in this episode going to talk about vitamins and minerals because there are a wide range of supplements, and
Okay.
I could go on about a lot of them.
Yeah, it would take too long. Okay.
Yes, so we're just going to talk about vitamins and minerals, and yes, it has the potential to be a little bit controversial, but I do think it's worth talking
Mm,
about and having a good balanced discussion because I think that a lot of people don't understand them to the extent that they should.
okay, cool. Brilliant. I really look forward to this. So, where shall we start? Are we all taking a lot of supplements? Is this a big sort of industry?
Oh, well, I don't know about you, but I see supplements everywhere. So every website with ads, I'm marketed for this and that.
Yeah,
And I just generally see them everywhere because of my previous job. As a
life.
pharmacist,
Yeah,
lots of people came in talking about,
yeah.
can I have vitamin C for my cold? Can I have coenzyme Q10 because I'm always tired? And then we had this really particularly expensive brand of vitamins that were meant to be for your
Right.
skin that the older women came in for, but they were like
Okay.
£80 a box. Um,
Oh,
and we had to keep them in a lockbox behind the counter because they were so expensive,
yeah,
people
like
would nick
gold
them.
dust. Hmm.
Yep. There's all those fizzy ones that make you dance around the park. Apparently, if you take them, you'll remember that advert. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
man. Hmm.
So there's huge amounts of vitamins available, lots of choices, lots of different ways of having them. We spend in the UK
Hmm.
0.61 billion pounds on vitamins, and that is mad, which they think will increase by at least 4.5% going forward every year.
So this is big business.
Big business. And so they say that every person in the United Kingdom contributes approximately £9 in revenue to this industry. So it's a big,
So you're
very
not going to
lucrative
turn
business.
this. You're not going to turn this ship around, particularly on this podcast, are you?
No, probably not. But I think it's worthwhile knowing a bit more about why we should or shouldn't take them. Not everybody needs to supplement, is
For
the
sure,
bottom line.
for sure. And are we safe to supplement? I mean, let's start at the beginning. Are there safety issues you're worried about?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. So I think
Okay.
just because something is on general sale and you can pick it up and you don't have to talk to anyone and
Yeah.
you can just buy it, doesn't mean that A, you should buy it, or B, that it's safe for you to buy that or to take that.
Okay.
So I think we need to talk
Okay.
about that because I don't think that supplements and especially vitamins and minerals are viewed in that sense. I think people think, it's a bit of
They're
vitamin,
pretty
whatever.
harmless.
It's
Yeah.
harmless. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's certainly not always the case. So it's worth knowing
Yeah.
that.
Okay. So
But there
that's
are certainly
interesting.
people who need to take them as well.
Yeah. In a slightly different category.
Yes. So you take some vitamins and
I
supplements, don't
do
you?
take some supplements because I have an absorption problem. But even for me, I'm fairly bewildered um, because the problem is there's no really a good testing
Yeah.
um, about what you actually need in what quantity, because how much are you actually absorbing? So even for me, who maybe has a particular need about
Yeah.
replacing some things, it's still a bewildering science without testing, because getting testing done is mostly a private matter. I mean,
Mhm.
there are some things I can get tested in my with my medical care, but mostly we're talking about pushing stuff into off a high board really, and you
Yeah.
don't know how much you're absorbing on any particular day or whether any of it's actually useful. And the other side of the coin is, could I be doing myself some harm? So even for me,
Yeah.
there's issues.
Yeah, so I think that we have to say at the outset that although I've said bottom line,
Yeah,
supplementation isn't necessary for everyone, there are certain
yeah,
populations of people
yeah,
who do need to supplement.
yeah,
So there are people who don't absorb nutrients from their food.
yeah,
So think about people who've got
yeah,
inflammatory bowel disease or something
yeah,
like that, or a short bowel, they've had an operation, got less bowel to absorb,
mm,
autoimmune conditions, um,
yeah,
people who have to take certain medication for other health conditions that stop nutrients being absorbed. They also
yes,
may need
okay,
to
yeah,
supplement. Um, and maybe people who have either severe mental health disorders where they only eat particular foods,
okay.
or
So intake of foods that's restricted.
yeah,
Yeah,
so either an eating disorder or a mental health disorder that leads to food phobias or food control or
yeah,
obsessive
yeah.
only
Get
eating
all
of
that.
certain things.
Yeah, yeah,
And then obviously pregnant women, um,
yes.
which is
Who take
important.
things like folic acid.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so that's a preventative measure to prevent neural tube defects,
yeah.
um
Get all that. I'm happy with that.
and
Okay,
again, if you think of people who might have
great.
hyperemesis, let's put it that way, so
Yeah, it
they
sounds
are very
terrible.
very
Never
very
wanted.
sick. No, no.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
if you can't keep your food down, for example,
Yeah. Of
you may
course.
need to supplement. And then we
Right.
kind of extend that to young babies and children because obviously when you're a baby and you're having milk, if you're having formula milk, you won't be getting all the vitamins and minerals you'd be getting from breast milk through your
Okay.
mother. So that's supplemented. And then when you wean a child, you know as well as I do that sometimes it takes a while before they like all
Yeah.
the foods that they need to get everything. So
Okay.
they certainly used to do something called Sure Start vitamins where children as well who were in lower socioeconomic groups would have supplementation
Mm.
with vitamins. That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah. I mean, even then, you might argue that it's unlikely that nature hasn't designed us to wean children without supplementing their minerals and vitamins. But anyway, let's move on because that's a tricky sort of area. We don't actually have the evidence either.
No.
So, but a lot of us, presumably in the general population, are using supplements as a guarantee or a sort of you know if we don't eat perfectly, let's at least guarantee it with something we supplement with.
Yes. And I think this is where it's sort of on a bit of shaky
Mm,
ground. So like the worried well
yeah,
don't necessarily need to do that coverall like you would with a weaning child, for example.
yeah,
But
okay,
anyway,
where you have
so
some indication. Yeah,
yeah. So we want to talk about the evidence, but we need to go back to why we need all of this stuff in the first place. Why did we start supplementation? So obviously, I think this is a problem now seen more in the developing world. So we
yeah,
see it less. We do see it sometimes, but we used to have diseases that were caused by lack of intake of
okay,
vitamins and minerals,
like
and that's how we knew.
rickets, like yeah,
Yeah, like rickets,
okay,
like scurvy, like retinal
yeah,
disorders with
yeah,
vitamin K. The babies get their
yes,
test and their
the jab,
jab when they're first born to help
yeah.
them, and beriberi and thyroid disorders and all of that. So we absolutely know from a baseline that we need these micronutrients. You can't argue against that. We
Yeah,
know
okay, I'm
we have
happy with
those
that.
things.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we need to kind of decide how much of this we actually need now, considering the state of our diet now to the state of our diet then.
So we're not sending people around the world on boats without vitamin C, are we?
No, not anymore. So
So I mean, that was a good story, wasn't it?
yeah, so put that into context. We used to, when we were colonizing, when the UK was
Colonizing,
colonizing the
yes,
world, oh,
yes.
awful. But when
We
they
needed
were,
supplementation to colonize. Yes.
well, we did. Well, we actually did because remember there weren't fridges and they couldn't
No
preserve
fresh fruit and
food.
veg.
There was no
Yeah.
fresh fruit and veg. So that's when we got scurvy and people had, bleeding gums, swollen legs, and then they
Vitamin
died. And
D deficiencies, vitamin C deficiencies.
yeah,
Yeah.
so scurvy was vitamin C, and then this naval surgeon decided to give the sailors lemon and lime rations, and that obviously had vitamin C, and then the symptoms went away and they weren't deprived anymore of that thing. So that's
Okay.
interesting because that's where British sailors got their nickname, the Limeys, from, which is fascinating.
Okay. Oh, cool.
And then, rickets and other diseases. So it's a different world now to the world where
Yeah.
we had to eliminate scurvy.
Or is
That's what I'm
it?
trying to say.
Or is it? Because
Wow.
are we eating huge amounts of ultra processed food? And does that mean we aren't necessarily as a nation getting all our minerals and vitamins from our diet?
Well, you see, that's an interesting thing, isn't it? But then think about some of the ultra processed food. Okay, take breakfast cereal
Yeah.
and you turn the package round and it's fortified with all the
So a lot
vitamins that
of
you need.
fortifications gone on in the food industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
you might not get any actual nutrition from a bowl of
Yeah.
shredded
But
food.
you will get some vitamins.
You'll get some vitamins. I mean, I read about this case about this chap in America who had a terrible um, mental health condition that meant he only ate bread and cheese. And so he
Right.
did develop scurvy.
Okay.
Understandably, because I don't think that either bread or cheese has got vitamin C in
Yeah.
it or
Unless the
added
bread
to it.
supplements. Yes.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
doubt it
Okay.
was.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, most, oh, I don't want to say most because I don't know, but a large proportion of ultra processed foods do have supplementation in them.
Supplementer. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's how that's one of the selling points, isn't it? That you have, I don't know, a cordial that says with added vitamin C or whatever it is. Okay. It's
Yeah,
part of the sales. And
hype.
isn't there, aren't there some minerals and things added to things like bread by standard sort of
Yeah, so folic
national
acid
standards? Yeah.
is added to flour and to bread
Okay.
and things like that. So yes, there are absolutely things that are added in. So so again, I still caution whether or not just because you're not eating a whole food diet, you're not actually getting your vitamins.
Right. But you don't know, you know.
You
That's the
just
trouble,
don't
isn't
know.
it?
You don't know. But what I
Yeah.
would say is if you are eating a well balanced whole food minimally processed diet, which
Yeah.
is what we would
And
aim for,
yeah.
we would suggest everybody aim for, there is
Yeah.
absolutely no need to supplement with
Okay.
multivitamins
Unless you have a specific
unless you have a
reason to
specific
supplement.
absorption
Yeah.
issue
Okay.
that we talked about before. I
So
think
if you're wholesalely throwing, as we are, by the amount of billions we're spending, so if we wholesalingly shove in multivitamins and minerals in a lot of ourselves without indication,
mm,
um, are there things that are unsafe about this? I mean, can you actually harm yourself?
you can, yes, and that's
Okay.
why I'm quite passionate about making sure people know that.
Right.
So there are different vitamins. Some are water soluble, some are fat soluble, and
Yeah.
that depends on how they get absorbed in your body.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's important.
Yeah.
The other thing is that so sometimes if you eat too much or intake too much, it will just go out through your urine. So some of the more
Okay.
water
So you
soluble
just
ones
pee
will
it
go.
out,
You just pee
basically.
it out.
Yeah.
That's an incredibly expensive way to spend money, in my personal opinion.
Yeah. So you basically got expensive pee, which you're putting down the loo. Yeah.
Which is wonderful, isn't it?
Because your body protects you against the oversupply of certain
To a
vitamins and
certain
minerals.
extent, yes.
Yeah.
But I think there has been a worrying trend because the market is not as well regulated as,
Yeah.
say, prescription medicines,
Yeah.
for higher doses of things to be recommended.
Okay.
So you
Yeah.
can go into a health food shop, you can go online and you can look at, say, I don't know, take vitamin D, for example. There is a
Yeah.
massive difference in the preventative dose that most people would like to take to see them through from September
Yeah.
to
Which
March,
is reasonable.
which is
Yeah.
reasonable, to the people who are incredibly vitamin D deficient and need to take high doses for a
Huge
high period of
doses.
time
Yeah.
in order
Yeah.
to get them back up to the baseline. So
Yeah.
that's a different thing. But people don't know that. And health food
Yeah.
shops and online companies will sell you all of this. And they won't give you
So
much
they
guidance.
might tell you you need a higher dose than you do, in which case, what happens?
Well, there are certain things that with certain vitamins we do know what happens. So too much vitamin A, okay, your bones are more
Yeah.
likely to fracture in older age. Okay, so that's not
Right.
good. Too
No.
much vitamin C leads to diarrhea and flatulence, which is not a horrific
No. Not a
thing, but
great idea. Yeah.
not great either. Too much vitamin D causes calcium to build up in your body. Okay, and that
Okay.
can actually damage your
Hypercalcemia.
kidneys and your heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Too much iron, we know, causes toxicity. That's why they've got those warnings on the bottle: keep out of reach of children, because so many children
Yeah.
have managed
Yeah.
to
I
get hold
take
of them.
them. Yeah.
If you have too much vitamin B6, you can get peripheral neuropathy, which means you get pain and numbness in your arms and your legs. So all of these things, it sounds like
I mean, what a minefield, though. I
it is
mean,
a minefield. Yeah,
how is the public meant to make any
sense of
real
it
sort
all.
of, how do you decide?
So I completely agree. And that's why I think it's so important just to be aware that, yes, they're really important. And we know, obviously, we need to protect against certain
Mm,
deficiencies. Absolutely. But you can have too much of a good thing. And
mm,
if you are doing things like eating fairly well, having a multivitamin, and then, for example, you go on a diet and they say, well, you need to take our supplement to make sure you're getting everything, or you
yeah.
you take a meal replacement shake that also has vitamins in it, or you have one of those bars that's fortified. Like, how do you know? You could spend your
Mm,
whole life trying to add everything up. Um,
mm,
so that's why I'm a little bit concerned that people don't really appreciate that there are benefits and side effects to taking
mm,
vitamins and minerals, and it's
mm.
not just as simple as, oh, it'll all get peed down the toilet. It's not
And
true.
for most people who are eating a whole food diet, they probably don't need any of it.
No.
That's the bottom line, isn't it?
Yeah.
Basically, you're probably better off getting it from a mixed food diet.
Yes.
Um, People will argue that we have, for instance, got our soil composition isn't the same as it used to be, and therefore the fruit and vegetables aren't supplying the same amounts. But none of this is terribly easy to find the evidence for, is it?
So the evidence is really shocking. It's really hard.
Mm.
They try and prove that supplementation will give benefit, and then they can't really do any of
Wasn't there
this.
that great campaign about making your children more intelligent by giving them
I don't know how you can possibly prove that. How would you know how intelligent they were going to be without taking the
I
multivitamin
was
beforehand?
I was very interested in that actually. I think I'm so mean that I'm interested, but I don't usually get to handing my money over. But I did think that advertising and marketing around children's intelligence was a marvelous
Well, they're very
idea,
clever.
because
Yeah.
imagine just giving them this capsule in the morning, they got better grades for maths at GCSE. Golly, I mean, seems like a no-brainer, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, but I think, take it with a pinch of salt because all of
Yeah.
these studies have very small populations. You can't really
Mm.
compare like for like. Um, and they've never really been able to
That
show.
campaign seems to have died a little. I
It
mean,
does, doesn't
are
it?
you
Yeah.
giving your children supplements to make them more intelligent?
I'm not, no.
You're not, and you're a pharmacist,
I
golly.
know.
So there's something in there, isn't there? There's
Yeah. I
something
mean,
in there.
I did give them supplementations when they were weaning. And to be perfectly honest, I probably didn't need to because both my
No,
children are very good eaters.
I suspect
Um,
you don't need to even then, because nature's not stupid. But as you say, I mean, formula feeding is different to breastfeeding, although most formulas are supplemented madly, aren't they?
Yeah, so they do have additional vitamins, well, they need
Mm.
to as well to
Yeah,
sort of
no, sure.
match the composition.
No, they do.
So,
Yeah.
all of that is kind of
Mm.
understandable.
Mm.
But then I just think, once your child is eating well and eating a well
Yeah.
balanced diet, then it's less of an issue.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
and
Okay.
so, in fact, I've stopped supplementing my children. They don't need the vitamins anymore. I know they're fine.
Yeah.
Um, and they
Okay.
eat
Well,
a wide variety of food.
I mean, that's a great indication that if somebody like you with a fairly balanced and science background, who was in the business of supplementation to an extent,
Mm,
is not supplementing their growing children, but feeding them as much of a whole food diet as you can, that's an indication really that for the rest of the population, we are wasting huge amounts of resources and peeing them
mm,
into the water, because we are sort of adding a sort of guarantee. So there's a big campaign at the moment by a well-known health platform for adding the equivalent of 30 plants to
in
your
one
diet
scoop.
in powder form or soup or whatever you like. But and there's part of me that that is very attracted to that, because I think, golly, one little thing of powder a day and you've done it. I mean, you don't have to think about the 30 plants, do you? But it's never going to be the equivalent of eating real food.
Yeah, well, interestingly, that little scoop of things isn't a
Yeah.
powder. It is actually made up of foods.
Okay. So
Um,
it's a bit different.
so it is a bit different, but in my head, I just can't get round why you'd pay the price for that
And
because you
not just go to the local market.
yeah, just go to the
Yeah.
supermarket. It's just so that's like a weird one. But it's I don't think people understand as well that a formulated product, right, has to go through a huge
Yeah.
amount of testing to
It's a
make sure.
processed, it's ultra processed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so and it has to make sure that, the when you take a medication or a supplement, it has to be absorbed to a certain extent. You have
Yes.
to make
And we'll
sure
all
that
absorb differently,
we all absorb
presumably.
differently. It depends on how your body breaks it down.
Yeah.
Tablets that you just take, like paracetamol, for example, they have to
Yeah.
be formulated to break down in the correct part of your digestive
Okay.
system. If you
Okay.
break them down in the wrong part, you won't get as good absorption. So remember, your
Okay.
stomach is very acidic, but your bowels are
Right.
more alkaline.
Yeah.
So there's a difference in pH there. So certain medications will break down in certain different areas.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
tablets take longer to break down than a liquid. Um, all of these things
Yeah.
come into
There's the
play.
capsules. Yeah. The
There's
capsules that
capsules,
are meant to survive the stomach, maybe to break down
yes,
later on.
and
Yeah.
then there's long-acting things that release continuously. So
But
there's
again, it would
huge.
depend on your individual metabolism,
It
wouldn't
does,
it, to an
yeah,
extent about how you absorb. Yeah.
yeah,
So it's a
and
minefield.
it's a
Basically, it's a
minefield.
minefield.
It's a minefield. You don't know whether or not the thing that you just swallowed is going to come out completely whole the other end. Like it is conceivable that you could take a tablet that doesn't break down properly, and it doesn't give you anything by the time you've
I mean,
excreted it.
to sum up, I'm sort of persuaded by somebody like you argument that mostly eating whole food is probably all you have to do,
Mm,
but that there are, there are conditions that might make supplementation useful and
absolutely,
maybe
and I don't
times in your
disagree with that
life
at all.
too. So very
Yes.
young, very old, people who are have appetite problems, people who have intake problems. So
Mm,
there will be definitely some times when supplementation will be useful.
yes.
Um, and but mostly it's an enormous industry which is selling us a bit of a pup in a way, and
Yeah.
we could just improve our diets. But the bottom line is also that in the real world, so not maybe our world, in the real world,
It's easier to take
um,
a pill.
yeah, we
Mm.
do. We are asking people to do what sometimes isn't possible for them
Yeah.
in terms of so we let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. That's what I'm
No, no, no.
thinking.
I think there is a real balance to be struck here, and I think that,
Yeah,
that we have to be really careful. And I do get cross because there is a wide disparity between the prices of the things that
yeah,
you could
and the
take that would
quality.
fit your need and
Yeah,
those that suggest that they are better for you.
yeah,
Um,
because they're more expensive.
and they're more
Yeah,
expensive. I mean,
yeah.
honestly, if you're paying in excess of £5, I think, for a multivitamin, you are being taken to the cleaners. It's just not,
Is this
you know,
is this why you don't work in business, really?
it is because I'm really terrible at business. Um,
Is this why we don't make any money, really?
yes, I think this is my problem because people used to come and say to me, "Can I buy this really expensive thing?" And I'd say, "Well, no,
Yeah,
because look,
yeah, and
this
you'd
one
say
is
no.
exactly the same, and you're getting like you don't need to take this."
Yes.
So I
Don't
would be
ever
a
work in
terrible
sales. Don't
salesperson.
ever
No,
work in
no
sales,
one will
no.
ever employ me in sales
No.
because I would be terrible. But the point is that um, there is minimal evidence to suggest that
Okay.
any of these things really have that much of a difference if you are absorbing well with a whole food
Yeah,
diet, right? So I
yeah.
have a couple of sort of golden rules. If you have a good
Okay.
diet, you don't have any health conditions that need
Yeah. You
supplementation because you
probably
don't
don't
have
need any of
absorption.
it.
You probably
Yeah.
don't need any of it, right?
Okay.
If you are allergic to foods or food phobias, or you want to follow
Yeah.
restrictive diets like
Yeah.
vegan or vegetarian that
That might
might
be
need some
different.
supplementation,
Yeah.
a standard multivitamin is going to be what you need. Okay, make sure you've
Okay.
got everything on the list that you need to cover all your bases that you
Yeah.
are
Yeah. Looking
not
to
getting.
supplement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but don't spend huge amounts of money on the expensive ones because, quite honestly, there isn't the
There'll
evidence
be
to
no
back that up.
different. Okay.
Yeah. There's
Okay.
minimal evidence to suggest that a different salt, for example, gives you that much of a benefit to warrant spending
So
that much money on.
the benefit's so small that it doesn't make much difference. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Get that.
Do not buy things that are high dose unless you have been explicitly told by a doctor that you
Okay.
have a deficiency that needs a
So
high
more
dose.
isn't always better. Yeah.
More is not always better, and I do think it does concern me that people don't
Yeah.
know what they're
Yeah.
actually having, and it could
Yeah.
be harmful. And I'm all about preventing harm. It's pretty much my whole
Absolutely.
mantra.
I mean,
So yeah.
isn't the other thing that always strikes me is, when they say this is your recommended daily dose of
Oh
whatever it
yes.
is.
Yeah, yeah.
What about your diet though? So aren't you always adding that to what you're already
Already
taking
having.
in terms of food? I never understand that. So what is the point of saying that the recommended daily amount of vitamin C is this much, when who
Yeah.
knows how many oranges you're eating or vitamin C in your diet anyway? I don't
Exactly.
understand the whole
And
dosage thing.
yeah, so you
Mm.
have something called the
Yeah,
recommended daily allowance or the
yeah.
nutrient reference index. And I did a lot of work on this a few years ago, and there's actually differences in different countries depending, like, so
Yeah,
it's mad. It's mad.
yeah,
People
yeah,
can't agree on
mad.
any of this
Okay,
stuff.
okay,
So, the bottom line is absorbable vitamins and minerals in their natural state is always going to be better for you from your
okay,
diet than
okay.
taking a supplement. And please don't waste your money on the things that tell you they're amazing, because generally
So
they're
everything
not.
that says it's amazing, you really need to be very careful about, because
Yeah.
it's always too good to be true,
It
isn't
is,
it?
and
Don't we know that?
I hate sort of saying that, but and I
That's
know
very
people have
true.
got to make money, and that's how the world works with business and things, but I do
Yeah.
feel that the majority of people don't need to do that, and it is
Okay.
such a waste. Such a waste.
Lovely. I'm
So there you
I'm
go.
very
I mean,
happy.
oh good,
That's
I'm
a
glad you're happy.
that's a balanced view, I think.
Yeah.
But there, there's always going to be questions about new marketed products. I could ask you a million things. We won't for
Mm,
this podcast, but maybe at another time we might talk about things like the evidence around particular supplements like
yeah, because
collagen.
that's
And
really
there's a few
interesting.
other topical supplements about
Yeah.
the plant supplements, what is the actual evidence around them. So that would be quite cool. I'm not saying there
Yeah.
isn't any. I'm just saying I'm still unsure. And when you look for the evidence, it isn't that easy to find,
Yeah.
because anything nutritional,
So hard
about
to research.
intake and about people's responses in terms of metabolic health is so difficult to track.
Mm.
Right.
Okay.
Next time.
See you next time. Bye.
See you soon. Bye.